Why is it that the longest war you have ever fought is the one happening right now inside your own head? You look in the mirror, and instead of seeing a miracle of existence, you see a catalog of flaws. You see the things you haven't achieved, the money you haven't made, the relationships you failed at. We live in a world that is constantly screaming at us to be more, to do more, to buy more, because who we are right now is simply not enough. And we believe it. We internalize this voice until it becomes our own. We think that if we just push ourselves a little harder, if we criticize ourselves a little more ruthlessly, eventually we will become worthy of love. But this is the great illusion. This is the trap. Today we are going to explore a truth that is both ancient and revolutionary. It is a concept rooted deeply in Buddhist philosophy, yet it is as practical as the breath in your lungs. It is the understanding that when you truly love yourself, not in a narcissistic, ego-driven way, but with the profound clarity of Maitri or loving kindness, everything else in your life begins to fall into place. The chaos settles, the anxiety quiets, the external world, which once seemed hostile and demanding, softens into a landscape of opportunity and peace. But to get there, we must first understand why we are at war with ourselves. Most of us operate under a conditional contract with happiness. We tell ourselves, I will love myself when I lose 20 pounds, or I will be proud of myself when I get that promotion. We treat self-love as a reward for good behavior, a prize to be won after we have suffered enough. But Buddhism teaches us that this approach is fundamentally backward. You cannot hate your way into self-love. You cannot criticize yourself into a better version of yourself. The aggression you hold against your own being is actually the block that prevents you from moving forward. It creates a state of internal friction. Imagine trying to drive a car with the emergency brake pulled up. You might move forward, but you are burning out the engine, creating smoke and noise, and destroying the vehicle in the process. That is how most of us live our lives, pushing against our own resistance. The suffering we feel, the loneliness, the sense of inadequacy, is not because we are broken. It is because we have forgotten our essential nature. In the Zen tradition, there is a saying, "You are perfect just as you are, and there is still room for improvement." This sounds like a paradox to the Western mind, which sees perfection as a final destination where no more work is needed. But in the spiritual sense, perfect means complete. You are a complete expression of life. You are not a project to be fixed. You are a mystery to be experienced. When you shift your perspective from fixing yourself to knowing yourself, the war ends. This journey we are embarking on over the next hour is not about adding more to your to-do list. It is about subtraction. It is about stripping away the layers of conditioning, the false beliefs, and the heavy armor you have built around your heart to protect it from pain. Ironically, that armor doesn't just keep pain out. It keeps love out too. It keeps you out. We are going to look at the concept of dukkha, or suffering, not as a punishment, but as a signal. When you feel that gnawing sense of self-dislike, it is not a sign that you are bad. It is a signal that you have disconnected from your source. Think about the last time you made a mistake. Maybe you said something awkward in a meeting, or you forgot an important anniversary. What was the immediate reaction of your mind? Did you say, that was a human moment. I will learn from this. Or did you unleash a torrent of abuse upon yourself? You idiot, you always mess things up. Why can't you get it right? If you spoke to your friends the way you speak to yourself, you would have no friends left. Yet we live with this abuser in our heads, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we wonder why we are exhausted. We wonder why we are anxious. The premise of this exploration is simple but radical. What if you stopped fighting? What if you dropped the weapon? What if just for this moment you decided that you are worthy of your own kindness simply because you exist? This is not about arrogance. Arrogance is actually a symptom of insecurity. It is the ego trying to compensate for a lack of self-love. True self-love is humble. It is quiet. It doesn't need to shout, "I am the best," because it knows, "I am enough." As we move deeper into this discussion, we will unravel the layers of the ego that keep us trapped in this cycle of self-rejection. We will look at how our childhoods, our culture, and our misinterpretations of reality have constructed a false identity that thrives on not enoughness. And we will begin the practice of Maitri, unconditional friendship with oneself. This is the foundation. Without this, no amount of success, money, or admiration from others will ever fill the void. The hole in your heart is the shape of you. Only you can fill it. So, take a deep breath. Let go of the need to achieve anything while listening to this. You don't need to take notes. You don't need to memorize concepts. Just let the words wash over you. Let them resonate with that part of you that has been waiting, perhaps for a long time, to be heard, to be seen, and to be held. Let us begin the process of laying down our arms and coming home to ourselves. To understand how to love ourselves, we must first understand the mechanism of self-rejection. It is rarely a conscious choice. No child is born hating themselves. Watch a toddler learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they crash into furniture. Do they sit there and think, "I am such a failure. I will never be a walker. I am an embarrassment to my family"? No. They get up, they try again. They are driven by an innate curiosity and a lust for life. They are entirely unself-conscious. They do not judge their performance. This is our natural state, a state of openness, resilience, and inherent worthiness. So, where does it go? How do we lose this profound connection to our own goodness? The Buddhist concept of samsara describes the cyclic existence of suffering, driven by ignorance and attachment. In our context, the ignorance is the forgetting of our true nature. As we grow, we are socialized. This is necessary, of course, to function in the world. But the socialization process is often a process of pruning. We are told, explicitly or implicitly, which parts of us are acceptable and which are unacceptable. Don't cry. Big boys don't cry. Don't be so loud. It's not ladylike. You're not good at math. You're not the smart one. Slowly, we begin to fracture. We create a shadow self, a repository for all the parts of us that were rejected by our caregivers, our teachers, and our peers. We start to believe that love is conditional. We learn that to be loved, we must perform. We must be good. We must be successful. We must be quiet. We must be pretty. We construct a persona, a mask that we wear to survive in the world and to garner approval. This persona is built on the fear that if people saw who we really were, if they saw the anger, the sadness, the neediness, the fear, they would leave us. So we spend an enormous amount of energy hiding our true selves, even from ourselves. This is where the inner critic is born. The inner critic is actually a misguided protector.
It thinks that if it criticizes you first, it can save you from the criticism of others. It thinks that if it pushes you to be perfect, you will never be rejected again. It says, work harder or you'll be poor and alone. Don't speak up or you'll sound stupid. It is operating out of a primal fear of abandonment. But the tragedy is that in trying to protect us from abandonment by others, we abandon ourselves. We become our own jailers. This self-rejection manifests in our lives in subtle and overt ways. It shows up as perfectionism, which is just fear dressed in fancy shoes. Perfectionism is not the pursuit of excellence, it is the avoidance of blame. It shows up as people-pleasing, where we flatten ourselves into doormats so that others won't be displeased with us. It shows up as addiction and numbing behaviors, scrolling endlessly on social media, overeating, drinking, anything to avoid sitting in the silence with the person we like the least, ourselves. Buddhism asks us to look at the concept of attachment, or upadana. We are attached to an image of who we think we should be. We have this idealized version of ourselves in our heads, the version that is always productive, always kind, always calm, always attractive, and we constantly compare our messy, complex human reality to this fantasy. The gap between who we are and who we think we should be is where the pain lives. We judge ourselves for having negative emotions. We judge ourselves for being lazy. We judge ourselves for judging ourselves. It is a hall of mirrors. But here is the turning point. You cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. The first step in the Buddhist path of healing is awareness. It is simply noticing the voice of the critic without believing it. It is stepping back and observing the mind rather than being the mind. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river, watching the water flow by. The water is your thoughts. Some thoughts are clear, some are muddy, some are turbulent. Most of us jump into the river and get swept away by the current. We drown in our own negativity. Awareness allows you to sit on the bank. You see the thought, "I am a failure," float by. Instead of jumping in and agreeing with it, "Yes, I am. Remember that time in 1998? You simply observe it. "Oh, there's the 'I am a failure' story again. Interesting." This separation is freedom. When you realize that you are not your thoughts, you create space. In that space, a new possibility can emerge. You begin to see that the self-rejection is just a habit. It is a neural pathway that has been reinforced over years of repetition. But the brain is plastic. The mind is pliable. Habits can be broken. New pathways can be formed. The root of self-rejection is a misunderstanding of reality. We think we are separate, isolated egos fighting for survival. We think our worth has to be earned. But the teachings of the Dharma remind us that we are interconnected with all of life. A tree does not need to apologize for being crooked. A cloud does not need to apologize for changing shape. You are a phenomenon of nature. You have a right to be here exactly as you are. Your flaws are not mistakes. They are part of the texture of your humanity. As we move into the next section, we will explore the antidote to this poison. If self-rejection is the disease, Maitri is the medicine. It is a specific kind of love that is courageous enough to look at the darkness and not turn away. It is the ability to stay with yourself when things are falling apart. It is the beginning of true friendship.
The Sanskrit word Maitri is often translated as loving kindness, but a more accurate and potent translation might be unconditional friendship with oneself. Pema Chodron, a renowned Buddhist nun, describes it as a process of making friends with your own mind. This is a radical shift from our usual operating mode. Usually, we are our own worst enemies. Maitri invites us to become our own best friend. But what does this actually look like? It doesn't mean standing in front of a mirror and reciting affirmations that you don't believe. It doesn't mean pretending that everything is wonderful when it's not. Maitri is gritty. It is real. It means looking at your jealousy, your anger, your pettiness, your fear, and saying, I see you. You are part of me. You are welcome here too. Imagine you have a house. Most of us only let the good guests in, the joy, the success, the confidence. When the bad guests arrive, the anxiety, the sadness, the shame, we slam the door, we lock the windows, we pretend no one is home. But these guests are persistent. They bang on the door, they break the windows, they sneak in through the basement. The more we resist them, the stronger they become. Maitri is the practice of opening the door. It is saying to the anxiety, come in, sit down, have a cup of tea. It is not about letting the anxiety trash your house. It is simply about acknowledging its presence without fear or hatred. When you stop fighting your own emotions, something magical happens. They lose their power over you. They are just energy. They arise, they stay for a while, and they pass. By accepting them, you allow them to flow through you. This is the essence of self-acceptance. It is an acceptance that includes everything, the light and the shadow. There is a profound gentleness in Maitri. It is the antithesis of the harsh drill sergeant mentality we usually use to motivate ourselves. We think we need to be hard on ourselves to get things done. But research and spiritual wisdom both show that self-compassion is a far more sustainable motivator than self-criticism. When you criticize yourself, you trigger the body's threat defense system. You release cortisol and adrenaline. You go into fight or flight mode. In this state, your creativity shuts down. Your perspective narrows. You are focused only on survival. When you practice Maitri, you trigger the mammalian caregiving system. You release oxytocin. You feel safe. And when you feel safe, you can grow. You can take risks. You can admit mistakes without being crushed by them. You become more resilient. Think of a child learning a difficult task. If you yell at them every time they fail, they will eventually stop trying. They will become paralyzed by the fear of failure. But if you encourage them, if you say, "It's okay, try again, I'm here with you," they will persist. They will eventually succeed. Maitri is treating yourself like that child. Developing Maitri requires practice. One effective method is to catch yourself in the act of self-aggression. When you notice that you are spiraling into self-judgment, pause. Put a hand on your heart. This physical touch is important. It signals safety to the nervous system. Take a deep breath, and then intentionally change the tone of your internal voice. Talk to yourself as you would talk to a beloved friend who is suffering. Say, this is really hard right now. It's understandable that you feel this way. It's okay to be struggling. This might feel awkward or even fake at first. That's okay. The neural pathways of self-criticism are deep highways. The pathways of self-kindness are overgrown trails. We have to walk them repeatedly to clear the path. Another aspect of Maitri is forgiveness. We carry around heavy bags of guilt and shame for things we did in the past. We replay our greatest hits of stupidity and insensitivity. But Buddhism teaches us that the person who made those mistakes is not the person you are today. You were doing the best you could with the level of consciousness and the tools you had at the time. To forgive yourself is to acknowledge that you are a learning, evolving being. It is to release the hope that the past could have been any different. Maitri also changes how we relate to others. You cannot truly love others if you do not love yourself. If you are empty, you will look to others to fill you up. You will use relationships as a way to validate your worth. This creates dependency, jealousy, and fear. But when you are full of Maitri, when you are at home with yourself, you approach relationships from a place of abundance. You share your love rather than begging for it. You can be present with others' pain because you are not running from your own. As we cultivate this unconditional friendship, we begin to notice a shift. The internal noise quiets down. The constant need for validation diminishes. We start to feel a sense of stability, a okayness that is independent of external circumstances. We realize that we have always been the one we were waiting for. We are the source of our own comfort. This is the dawn of true independence.
One of the most persistent sources of our suffering is the feeling of isolation. We walk around in these individual bodysuits, looking out at the world through two eyes, feeling like separate entities cut off from the rest of existence. This creates a deep existential anxiety. We feel small. We feel vulnerable. We feel like it is me against the world. This separation is the root of the ego, and it is the primary barrier to self-love. Buddhism challenges this perception with the concept of interbeing. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Zen master, coined this term to describe the interconnected nature of all things. He illustrates it with a simple piece of paper. If you look deeply into a sheet of paper, you can see the logger who cut the tree. You can see the wheat that fed the logger. You can see the cloud that brought the rain to grow the tree. You can see the sun. Without the cloud, the rain, the sun, the earth, the logger, the paper cannot exist. The paper is with the entire universe. The same is true for you. You are not a solitary event. You are a continuation of your ancestors. You are made of the same elements as the stars. Every breath you take is an exchange with the atmosphere of the planet. The food you eat connects you to the soil and the labor of others. You are deeply, inextricably woven into the fabric of life. Why does this matter for self-love? Because when you understand interbeing, you realize that rejecting yourself is rejecting the universe. You are a specific, unique manifestation of life energy. To hate yourself is to hate the creation. To judge yourself is to judge the cosmos. When you see yourself not as a small, isolated ego, but as a wave in the ocean of existence, the pressure lifts. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You are supported by the whole. This perspective shifts us from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. The ego lives in scarcity. It says, there is not enough love, money, or success to go around. I must fight for my share. This leads to competition, envy, and defensiveness. But the spirit lives in abundance. It knows that life is infinite. When you love yourself, you tap into this infinite source. You stop viewing others as threats and start viewing them as fellow waves in the ocean. Self-hatred is often a form of extreme self-absorption. When we are obsessing over our flaws, we are entirely focused on me, me, me. It is a negative form of narcissism. Paradoxically, learning to love yourself allows you to forget yourself. When you are not constantly tending to the wounds of your own insecurity, you can look up. You can see the beauty of the world. You can be of service to others. You become a clear vessel through which life can flow. Consider the metaphor of the cell in the body. If a single cell decides it is separate from the body, if it tries to hoard resources and fights against the surrounding cells, it becomes cancerous. It destroys the host and itself. A healthy cell knows it is distinct but not separate. It functions for the good of the whole, and in doing so, it receives everything it needs from the body. When we align ourselves with the flow of life, when we accept who we are and play our part, we are like that healthy cell. Everything falls into place because we are no longer fighting the current. We are flowing with it. This alignment requires surrender. Not surrender in the sense of giving up, but surrender in the sense of stopping the resistance. We resist reality when we wish things were different than they are. I shouldn't be this sensitive. I shouldn't be this old. I shouldn't have lost that job. But you are that sensitive. You are that age. You did lose that job. Arguing with reality is a battle you will lose 100% of the time. Loving yourself means loving your reality as it is right now. It means saying yes to this moment, even if this moment is painful. In the space of acceptance, transformation becomes possible. You cannot change what you do not accept. By accepting your current state, you gain traction to move forward. You stop wasting energy on denial and regret. You become present, and in the present moment, you are always enough. The feeling of lack always comes from the past, regret, or the future, worry. In the now, there is no lack. There is just being. As we deepen our understanding of non-separation, we begin to treat ourselves with the same reverence we would treat a sacred object. Not with egoic pride, but with a sense of stewardship. This body is a temple. This mind is a tool. This life is a gift. Self-love becomes a spiritual practice, a way of honoring the gift we have been given. It is the ultimate act of gratitude.
We often think of self-love as a solitary endeavor, something we do on a meditation cushion or in a journal. But the true test of self-love is in our relationships with others. Relationships are the mirrors that reflect our inner state back to us. If you want to know how much you love yourself, look at the quality of your relationships. Look at the people you surround yourself with. Look at what you tolerate. There is a fundamental psychological principle. We accept the love we think we deserve. If you believe deep down that you are unworthy, you will subconsciously seek out partners and friends who confirm this belief. You will be attracted to people who are critical, unavailable,
or abusive. Why? Because it feels familiar. It matches your internal map of reality. If someone treats you with kindness and respect, it might actually feel uncomfortable or suspicious because it dissonates with your self-view. You might push them away or sabotage the relationship. When you begin to practice Maitri and raise your vibration of self-worth, your tolerance for toxicity drops. You simply can no longer afford to be around people who bring you down. This isn't about judging them, it's about honoring yourself. You realize that your energy is precious. You start setting boundaries. Boundaries are a profound act of self-love. Many of us are afraid to set boundaries because we fear rejection. We think, if I say no, they won't like me. So we say yes when we want to say no. We overextend ourselves. We let people cross our lines. This leads to resentment. And resentment is the poison that kills relationships. When you set a boundary, you are saying, I value myself enough to protect my well-being. You are also teaching others how to treat you. As you love yourself more, you stop needing others to complete you. The Jerry Maguire line, "You complete me," is the most romanticized lie in Hollywood. Two halves do not make a whole. Two halves make a dependent, unstable structure. Two wholes make a partnership. When you are whole, you enter a relationship to share your completeness, not to fill your emptiness. You are no longer a beggar with a bowl, asking for scraps of validation. You are a king or a queen, inviting another into your kingdom. This shift changes the dynamic of conflict. When you are insecure, every criticism from a partner feels like a death threat. You become defensive, attacking back or shutting down. But when you are secure in your self-love, you can hear feedback without falling apart. You can admit when you are wrong without feeling like you are worthless. You can hold space for your partner's emotions without taking them personally. Conflict becomes a bridge to deeper understanding rather than a battle for survival. Furthermore, loving yourself allows you to release control. When we are insecure, we try to control everything, our partners, our children, our colleagues, because we are trying to manage our own anxiety. We think if we can control the outside world, we will feel safe inside. But this is exhausting and impossible. It pushes people away. Self-love gives you the internal safety to let go. You can let people be who they are. You can trust the process of life. This creates an atmosphere of freedom around you, and people are naturally drawn to that freedom. There is also the aspect of projection. We often project our own disowned shadow onto others. The things that irritate us most about others are often the things we refuse to accept in ourselves. If you are ruthlessly critical of others, it is a sure sign you are ruthlessly critical of yourself. If you judge others for being lazy, you likely have a hidden fear of your own laziness. As you integrate your shadow through Maitri, you stop projecting. You become more tolerant, more compassionate. You see that everyone is fighting a hard battle. You forgive others because you have forgiven yourself. The universe responds to your frequency. When you emit a signal of, I am worthy, I am loved, I am enough, the universe reflects that back to you in the form of opportunities, synchronicities, and aligned connections. You start meeting people who vibrate at that same level. The vampires who used to feed on your insecurity fall away because there is no longer a hook for them to latch on to. Your social landscape transforms. This doesn't mean you will never be lonely or heartbroken again, but it means that you will never be truly alone, because you will always have yourself. You become your own constant companion. You know that no matter who comes or goes, you will be okay. This is the ultimate security. This is the solid ground upon which a life of joy can be built.
A common misconception about self-acceptance is that it leads to passivity. People worry, if I accept myself exactly as I am, why would I ever change? Won't I just sit on the couch and eat potato chips all day? This is the fear that self-hate is the only fuel for progress. But as we touched on earlier, self-hate is a dirty fuel. It burns hot and fast, but it leaves residue and eventually destroys the engine. True self-love is actually the most powerful catalyst for action. Think about it. Do you take better care of a rental car that you don't care about, or your dream car that you worked years to buy? You take care of what you value. When you value yourself, you naturally want to nurture and support your growth. You eat healthy food not to punish your body for being fat, but to fuel your body because it is precious. You work hard on your business not to prove you are not a failure, but to express your talents and contribute to the world. The difference is the intention. The action might look the same on the outside. You are still going to the gym, you are still working late, but the internal energy is completely different. One is driven by fear, running away from unworthiness. The other is driven by love, running towards potential. Fear feels heavy, constricted, and draining. Love feels expansive, light, and energizing. When you operate from a place of wholeness, you are also less attached to the outcome. You pursue your goals with passion, but your self-worth is not on the line. If you fail, it's just data. It's feedback. It's not a verdict on your soul. This makes you fearless. You are willing to try things, to look foolish, to experiment. You become a playful creator of your life, rather than a grim manager of your reputation. This is where the phrase, "everything falls into place," really comes alive. When you are forcing life, pushing against doors that are closed, grinding your gears, you are out of alignment. You are trying to manipulate reality to give you what you think you need to feel okay. But when you already feel okay, you enter a state of flow, or wu wei in Taoism. You become sensitive to the currents of life. You can see which doors are opening. You act with timing and precision. You stop chasing things that aren't meant for you. We often chase jobs, partners, or lifestyles that don't actually align with our true nature simply because we think they will impress others or fill our void. This leads to struggle and dissatisfaction. When you know and love yourself, you trust your intuition. You say no to the things that drain you, and yes to the things that light you up. You start walking your own path, not the path your parents or society laid out for you. And because it is your path, it has a natural momentum. It feels right. This alignment attracts abundance. People want to work with, buy from, and be around people who are authentic and centered. Desperation smells. It repels people. Confidence, quiet, grounded, self-loving confidence is magnetic. When you don't need the deal to close to feel good about yourself, you negotiate better. When you don't need the date to like you to feel worthy, you are more charming.
By letting go of the desperate grip on the outcome, you actually increase the likelihood of getting what you want. Moreover, self-love unlocks your creativity. Creativity requires vulnerability. It requires putting something of yourself out into the world. If your inner critic is screaming at you, you will censor yourself. You will play it safe. You will produce derivative, mediocre work. But when you are friends with yourself, you feel safe enough to take creative risks. You express your unique voice, and the world craves unique voices. The world is starving for authenticity. So the action plan of self-love is not do nothing. It is do everything from love. It is to infuse every action, every conversation, every decision with the quality of Maitri. It is to build a life that honors who you are. It is to create an environment where you can thrive. It is to become the gardener of your own soul, pulling the weeds of negativity and watering the seeds of potential, patiently, day by day, knowing that the harvest is inevitable.
We have traveled a long way in this hour. We have looked at the battlefield of the mind, the roots of our suffering, the medicine of Maitri, the illusion of separation, the mirror of relationships, and the power of aligned action. Now we arrive at the destination. But the destination is not a new place. It is where we started. It is a homecoming. T.S. Eliot wrote, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." The journey of self-love is a circle. We go out into the world. We get lost in the confusion of the ego. We get hurt. We fracture. And then, slowly, we begin to pick up the pieces. We remember. We return. The state of loving yourself is not a state of permanent euphoria. You will still have bad days. You will still get angry, sad, and scared. You will still make mistakes. But the relationship to these events has changed. You are no longer drowning in the ocean. You are learning to surf. You have a lifeboat. You have an anchor. You know that no matter how violent the storm becomes on the surface, deep down, in the depths of your being, there is a stillness that cannot be disturbed. This is your Buddha nature. It is unblemished, radiant, and indestructible. When you love yourself enough, everything falls into place. Not because the world becomes perfect, but because you stop demanding that it be perfect. You find peace in the imperfection. You find beauty in the mess. You realize that the obstacles were actually part of the path. The heartbreaks were opening you up. The failures were teaching you wisdom. You stop fighting your life and start living it. There is a tremendous relief in this surrender. The war is over. You can put down the heavy armor. You can take off the mask. You can just be. You can breathe. You are enough. You have always been enough. You will always be enough. As you move forward from this moment, carry this awareness with you like a lantern. When the shadows of self-doubt creep in, and they will, shine the light of Maitri on them. Say to yourself, I see you, fear. I see you, insecurity. It's okay.
I've got you. Be the parent you never had. Be the friend you always wanted. The ripple effect of your self-love will go far beyond what you can imagine. A healed person helps heal the world just by their presence. Your calmness will calm others. Your self-acceptance will give others permission to accept themselves. By loving yourself, you are performing a profound service to humanity. You are reducing the amount of suffering in the world by ending the suffering within yourself. So let everything fall into place. Trust the timing of your life. Trust the wisdom of your soul. You are held by a universe that loves you more than you can comprehend. Open yourself to receive that love. Let it fill you up until it overflows. Thank you for taking this journey today. Thank you for showing up for yourself. It is the most important work you will ever do.